Greg, this is one I think you'll be very fascinated by. There's a new movie coming out from A24 this weekend called Heretic. I guess technically it comes out tonight because it's Thursday. And it's a horror movie. Uh, it stars Hugh Grant as like this weird lone dude who like makes these two young missionaries kind of like prove their faith and like traps them in their house in this maze or whatever. It's supposed to be like a religious thriller or horror movie. But something interesting, Greg, as the movie has started showing and screening to press over the last week, people noticed in the credits there is a line or a disclaimer in the credits that says essentially no AI, no generative AI was used in the making of this film. I sent you a screenshot of it, like that someone took in the theater on Slack. But we've also got the article here, and this is kind of the first major example of this happening in Hollywood, right? I mean, we talk about the dangers and threat AI poses to creativity, filmmaking, writers, editors, directors, and the filmmakers behind Heretic kind of wanted to get out in front of it and put this disclaimer in their film, and they actually talked about it. They provided a quote about it, which I'll read here. We have no illusions that when people watch Heretic, they're going to go, wait, did they use generative AI? It doesn't feel like that at all, but it was important for us to put that out there because we think it's important. We think it's something people need to start talking about. Yeah, and they go on to say, I think this idea that an algorithm can just scrape all of human history and art off the internet, repackage it, regurgitate it, spit it out, and somebody else can use that to create profit. I don't know why that's legal. So yeah, I think this is super interesting. We talk about this a lot, but there you go. Yeah, I wonder if this is something that we'll see more studios do in the future, moving forward.
Or maybe the MPA will make it a requirement to make a note in their credits that you used it.
That's a good point. Yeah, it might just become the new, no animals were harmed in the making of this movie kind of thing.
But that's the key problem with it right now is that because there's no legislation and there's nothing like really preventing it from doing that, like people are doing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the big problem is that you can probably do it and get away with it, and profit off it. Because that's the big thing. Does it steal? Absolutely. Can you prove it? Kind of. Like that's what people will do. Like that's the history of our culture, of our society. We will do whatever we can until there's a million different legislations. And I don't know, like in law all the time, if you watch law dramas, you always go back to a case where someone wins or loses, and then that's like the new standard going forward. And happens all the time, right? Oh, in this case, this was thrown out because this happened. This is the same case, so it's thrown out again. It's the same concept. So, but we haven't had like a case that's won or lost, I don't think, against generative, other than the fact that like we've proved that it scrapes websites for content. That's all we've proved. So it does take something.
Not just website, but videos.
Right, videos, images, art. We proved that it does take something. But I think the key part, the hard thing about us is proving, okay, what exactly did it take from the scanned image? Because it didn't take the full image, it scanned it, but what did it take? The pinky, the eye, like, and then how do you address the monetary value? I'm just thinking how a lawyer would defend this to a jury or to like a judge, right? If he's for AI. Because that's basically what you have to prove. What did it exactly steal? We know it scanned your website, and sometimes it's like blatantly obvious, right? Like it's just copy and paste, right? It's just blatantly obvious, but sometimes it's not. And I think we need to get on this shit fast, like quickly, because it's going to get out of control very quickly. And I've seen multiple YouTube videos just using it just egregiously. I've seen multiple music video comedy YouTubers using it. Mega64 even used it. They use it to generate images and like really bad 3D dancing. But they use it. And it's clear that it's AI, but there's nothing that prevents you from doing that right now. And that's really scary.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, we are probably going to see a lot of this here. While we're talking, Greg, you just mentioned like other brands using it. I'm going to send you a post from Fox Sports. This is from last weekend. They were posting about the Detroit Lions game. They're showing the final score, and usually the teams always put a graphic up. But I want you to pull up this AI image that they post on the official NFL on Fox Twitter account.
Look at this on the thing right now. Holy crap!
Yeah, but look at the impressions on this tweet: 3.5 million. And I mean, every reply is like, "What is this hideous ass, ugly?" Fake AI image of it's three lions, obviously the Detroit Lions, and they're eating cheese. Greg, I know you don't know sports. The Green Bay Packers, like cheese is like one of their symbols. Like the fans were like cheese
the cheese
heads.
Wisconsin. I've seen the commercials.
Right. So that's what they're trying to do here with this image, but it's just like this weird, uncanny image of digital AI generated lions eating a weird looking block of cheese. But it's stuff like this where like companies are just gonna try it, right? Like somebody at Fox was like, "Wait, what if I don't know, just type it in the Chat GPT or whatever image generation Mid Journey, and just see if we can make a thing." So yeah, I do think it's cool that they're doing this. I do want to give them actual shout out. Their names are Scott Beck and Brian Woods are the names of the filmmakers behind Heretic. I'm gonna go see it this Sunday. There's an old cinema in Baltimore that's doing like a weekly event for movies. So I'm gonna go check it out Sunday morning. I'm excited. I'm hearing it's very good, but I thought it was important.
I'm like seeing this image. I didn't even realize it exists. Like it pisses me off to no end because you know how insane and egregious the NFL is about copyright protection, and they're fucking just like it's
Yeah,
they just
without the express written consent of the NFL.
I've gotten a cease and desist from them before. I think I told you the story before, but I was doing like audiobook trailers. Like they were visual book trailers, like, animated little animatic book trailers that I would cut. And one of them was like a how to, like play football. And it had a player in there for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he had the NFL logo on. And I got a cease and desist in the mail. That's why I need to move it. Like it got sorted out. But like that's how egregious they were. They saw that little trailer that had less than 200 views and like sent a cease and desist out. And then they're just blatantly stealing things now because why not? There's no law against it, right? And that's the problem. There needs to be laws. There needs to be laws against it. It needs to be regulated. I don't have any I don't have any faith in our Senate and Congress doesn't even know how Facebook works. They're not going to understand how AI works either. Like, and they're not going to understand how to control it or modernize it or can, protecting your property is going to be very difficult now moving forward. Very difficult. And that's scary and sad and frustrating. And fuck the NFL. Seriously, fuck you guys. Really? You guys did this? Really? Like you steal you get so crazy with your logo and your stupid team logos, but this it's like remember South Park had an episode of like the Kansas City Chiefs losing their logo copyright for like a hot minute and South Park just ran with it for like a whole episode. They had it like every frame. Because there's copyright things that can overlap and they lose like television rights or whatever. Same thing happened with that Katy Perry song I mentioned sometimes in the show. Like it laps and you're allowed to use it because of some weird contract flaw. The problem with AI is, like I said, like there's no contract flaw. It's just stealing. You're just stealing. Like that's all it is. You're just hardcore stealing. It's wild.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be officially defined as that, before they're actually able to start doing stuff. But hopefully that day's coming sooner rather than later. But yeah, I figured that was worth talking about. It's an interesting precedent. I think that A24, a very relevant studio, to be doing that as well. This isn't like some random homemade film. A24 is pretty well known and influential in the film business. Greg, our next story is an interesting one. It's kind of a twofer because Robert Zemeckis, who has made many great films in his days, says that Universal keeps asking him to make Back to the Future 4, but he would rather make Back to the Future the musical. He said, I floated that idea to Universal. They don't get it. So this is an interesting one, right? Obviously, Back to the Future, beloved trilogy of movies. As culturally relevant as you can be, right? For like an 80s film where everyone knows Back to the Future. It's very iconic. They still do stuff on the anniversary every couple of years for it. Doc Brown, Marty McFly, all that good stuff. Obviously, there hasn't been a film since Back to the Future 3, all the way back in the 80s. It's one of those few like beloved pop culture franchises that has not yet gotten like a reboot or a requel or a sequel or anything. And I don't know if you're aware, Greg, but there is like a Broadway adaptation called Back to the Future the Musical that's been around for some years now. That people say it's very good. I unfortunately never watched the show on Broadway, but people say it's a very good musical. And Zemeckis says that he wants to turn the musical into a movie, which is something we've seen a lot, right? Like Mean Girls became a musical on Broadway, then they made a movie about the musical based on the movie. They did that with Wicked, which was a musical inspired by Wizard of Oz. It's now becoming a movie itself. And Zemeckis wants to do this, but he can't because, Universal wants him to make Back to the Future 4. But he doesn't want to make Back to the Future 4, which I thought was funny, that him and Universal are doing this dance where they're like, we want this. He's like, how about this? And they're like, no, not that.
Anything but that, right? Which I think would do well. But like, it's funny. Several years ago, Robert Zemeckis did like an interview over like Universal. There was talk. I have it on the thing now. There was talk of like a reboot of like Universal doing a reboot, and
Right.
just to show you the different times of like how IP was kind of viewed back then. Like Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, I think, have full rights to that franchise. Like, or they have to sign
Oh
off if
wow.
anything is made. They have to okay it. Like they have final
Okay.
approval. So
That's okay. So that's why there has been a new Back to the Future.
yeah. So like, but like that's wild though. Like just think about like how, because at the time it's hindsight, right? Like you didn't realize IPs could last this long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be
No.
this valuable. So like now when you make a movie, you sign everything away and you're paid to make the movie. And then if they want to make 12 other Joker movies, they can. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
without your approval. But that's wild
Yeah.
that he's still like, I'm glad he's still alive. I'm now, like I said this before, I'm sure if he, when he passes and Bob Gale dies and their kids die and their grandsons need quick cash, they'll sign over the rights instantaneously. But that's like 40
Yeah.
years from now, 50 years from now, 60 years from now.
Mhm.
So, and who knows?
Yeah.
What,
I mean,
but
I'm
yeah, that's
sure. I'm sure Universal's like, let's kill this guy.
yeah, right. Yeah, let's get his grandkids some $1 million for the rights to Back to the Future. I think the musical did well on Broadway, from what I understand and what I've like
It
kind of
did.
gained. So like, but like, then again, Broadway stuff doesn't always translate great to video. You know what I
Film.
mean?
Yeah. Which, I mean, to be fair, Mean Girls just came out this year, did not well. That movie did not
Yeah.
do great at the box office. Because one, in general, I think musicals are like an uphill battle for the general public. I love me a musical, but I think collectively people kind of groan at musicals. At least the average one. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, but I don't know. I think if you announced a new Back to the Future movie is coming out in 2026, everybody would go, yay. And then if you said it's a musical, everybody would be like, boo. You know, it'd be one of those things. So I don't know. I personally am of the mind that I know you're not going to love what I'm about to say. I think it'd be really fun to do a Back to the Future for, just because of all the franchises you could play with, sequels all those years in between. Back to the Future seems ripe for it. It's a time travel story. So, I mean, I think you could have a lot of fun with a reverse or flipping that narrative on the head, where you have like a modern Gen Z descendant of Marty McFly go back to the 80s. I think that to me, that sounds like $1 billion. But what do I know? Um, it seems very ripe for that formula. So I think that'd actually be a lot of fun. I'm also just learning from this article, Greg, that the Back to the Future musical recently announced its final performance on Broadway is going to be January 5th, 2025. So it's actually about to end its run,
It's
which
running
makes me
for a
feel like now I
while.
need to. It has. Now I feel like I need to like get on a friggin' bus to New York and go watch it. But yeah, it'll be interesting. But good on Zemeckis for being like, no, Back to the Future 4 doesn't appeal me appeal to me
Well,
creatively.
it's weird
I'm
because like
good.
Nicole has been looking at. We were looking at Broadway plays yesterday, just because I'm going to New
Oh
York
really?
for Toy Fair, and she was looking at Broadway shows, and like the shows that are popular, it's like $300 a ticket. Like it's not
Oh
cheap.
yeah.
I
No no
remember
no no.
when the Cursed Child came to San Francisco, I was like, oh, maybe we'll go. It was $500 for nosebleed seats. And I'm like, I'm not spending $1,000. Like I can't. Like I've heard it's a great show. I've heard it's high production value. I'm like $1,000. Like I can't. I just
Dude,
can't
yeah.
justify that. But like people buy it. So like there's big money in Broadway. Obviously it's live actors. There's a lot of thought put into it, a lot of rehearsal, a lot of
You
training, a
know,
lot of talent. I'm not saying
those
shouldn't be expensive, but it's very expensive.
it's tough, right? I'm split on it because those top of the line productions, man, there is nothing like a good live stage show. I mean, I love movies, I love TV, but like the theater is something special about about live theater. And I guess it's the fact it's just so deeply rooted in human culture. Like we've been doing live theater performances for like thousands of years. I don't know, there's something like that scratches like the deepest part I feel like of the human spirit, sitting in a theater and watching a live performance that way. But yeah, at the end of the day, those theaters have but so many seats, and there are millions of people who would love to watch those shows. So it does become expensive. It's a bummer because I look back now where I'm like, man, I live on the East Coast. I'm like a 3 hour drive from New York, and I could just pull up a laundry list of like the world renowned 5 star critically beloved Broadway performances that have come and gone in my adult life that I just haven't seen because it's just not worth me shelling out
Yeah,
$600-700
yeah.
to watch it, and then be done.
Wicked, Book of
So
Mormon, Lion King, like
Wicked,
these are all huge.
Hamilton,
Hamilton, these are all
Hamilton
huge
ran,
tickets that are
yeah,
like easily $250, $300 from nosebleed seats. Yeah, and you just
yeah,
don't see them. And then like you kind of
it's just hard to
hope
square.
you're like maybe they'll make a movie because then you watch it, right? Maybe they'll make a movie, right? They're doing it for
Yeah,
Wicked. They didn't do it for Book of Mormon. The Lion King has been you've seen that. We've seen that story, right? But it's a little bit different when it's a
yeah.
Broadway show.
I think Hamilton's supposed to be getting a movie. They've been
Yeah, it
talking about that
is.
for a
It is
while.
supposed to be getting a movie. Yeah, but like it's a big
Mm,
deal. It's a big production. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but it is really
it's tough.
expensive. But like it also like the I've only been to a handful of Broadway shows in my life, like smaller ones. The biggest one I ever went to was The Producers. We were probably too young for
Mm,
that. That was like
yeah.
2001, 2002.
Mm,
It was great. Fantastic show. I got there. I got there for free. I have no idea how much tickets were. I don't think they were $300 at the time, but they were really expensive. But it is pretty cool to see a live Broadway show. Everyone should do it at least once. You don't have to see
Yeah.
the big ones. You can go to a slightly smaller one.
I was gonna say that too because there's also off Broadway, which shows are a little cheaper. Also just locally, right? Whatever the nearest major city is to you, definitely has a theater company. So it is possible to go see good live theater and not spend hundreds of dollars to do it. But there's something special
above a bowling alley. Go see it above a bowling alley. The one man shows in front of.